Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Sebastian. I'm one of the developer advocates at JetBrains, specifically for Kotlin, and I'm joined today by Matt Ellis. Hey, Matt.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm one of the developer advocates, and I work on a bunch of different things, including remote development and what we're going to be talking about today, which is Code with Me.
I am so excited about this. We were doing a dry run of some other demos beforehand, and the only word that I can describe Code with Me is magical. It's one of those features where seeing really is believing. I love it quite a lot, and we're gonna spend a lot of time diving into all of that. But before, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm sure you know how to use the platforms on which you are watching. If you are on Twitch or if you are on YouTube, there's a little chat window. And if you send us a couple of messages there, or if you send us a couple of questions, then we'll be able to see those. And either if they fit in really well, we'll answer them right away. I'll probably just ask Matt and talk over him and interrupt his explanations, or we'll answer them afterwards in the Q&A. We'll have specific time just dedicated to your questions. The other big thing is, of course, that this session is being recorded. If you are watching this in the future, then hello from the past. If you're watching this live, then hello from right now, or like a 10-second delay, something like this. So don't worry. You'll get all the information even afterwards. If we're talking over something too fast, you can rewind. You'll have access to that information anyway. Right, and with that out of the way, we'll get into the meat of today's session. So, Code with Me. I'm seeing right here on the slide, Matt, it's about collaborative programming and even about teaching and learning, huh? So, tell us a little bit more, why don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Code with Me is a feature of IntelliJ IDEA, and not just an IDEA, but of the whole platform, really. So all the IDEs. And it's all about collaborative development. And by that, we mean sort of, as you've got here, working together on a single code base to solve problems, review code, learn, and more, and so on. And all that is a nice way of saying of working together, sort of remote working, all on a single code base, which means on one machine. So, for example, if I want to work with somebody on a project, if I want to invite somebody to work with me on a project, they will join my session, work with my code, make changes to my code, and we can figure out what's going wrong. We can navigate around, look at code reviews, mentoring, all these kinds of interesting things, and work with the code. This all happens remotely, so you don't have to be in the same environment there. And really, I guess the sort of first question is, why would be interested in doing this sort of collaborative development? And quite often, this is the sort of thing that we would do in the office, just naturally. You'd call somebody over to your desk and ask for a bit of help and so on. But if we're working remotely, and a lot of us are working remotely these days, then that's a little bit trickier, and we want some tools which we can use then to sort of help us with that. And that's exactly what Code with Me is all about, sort of remote teamwork and sort of calling somebody over to your desk sort of virtually, inviting them into your project, getting them to see the code, help you out, review something, teach you something if you can't figure something out yourself, and so on. And there's a couple of different scenarios. As I mentioned, mentoring is a good one there. So if you want to show people stuff, teach people how to work, with a specific API or a feature that you've just created, you can explain that and show people there, help people to learn new skills, test-driven development, for example. Code reviews is also another good one as well. I've made a bunch of changes. Can we just step through the code and have a look? And you want to be able to do more than just look at the code there. You want to be able to do things like running it, debugging it, running tests, making sure it works, navigating around, looking things up, and sort of all the rich IDE features that you'd expect, but sort of for a code review scenario. And also pair programming. You just want to work together on a particular feature. The benefits of pair programming, not necessarily learning something or bringing a colleague up to speed, but also the whole two heads are better than one. You can solve problems better. You can get a more elegant design of your code. You can do a whole lot of more interesting things with pair programming. We've got swarm programming on there as well, because Code with Me isn't just about pair programming. Pair programming just makes you think two people. but Code with Me can work with a whole load of people. You can invite the whole team. So we can actually work up to 100 people on your session, which is quite excessive, but there we go. And that also is useful in a sort of mentoring situation as well. If you're in a classroom scenario, for example, and you're at the front trying to explain things to people, you can have the whole class included in your session and navigate around, and they can see where you're going, what the code is doing, and so on. And of course, another scenario is just quick help. I'm stuck on a quick thing, a small thing. Quickly join my session. Show me that I'm an idiot. Let me do the rubber duck while you're on the session there, and explain something to you, and then very quickly see what the problem is. There's a whole bunch of key features with Code with Me, a lot of cool things that it can do. I'll go over these as we have a look at that there. Just want to call a few things out. So, for example, the simultaneous editing is the key one, which everyone thinks about, but it's more than that as well. We've got things like the remote unit testing, the previews for version control, Smart Code Insight, which is our fancy way of saying you get all the syntax highlighting, code completion, navigation, all the usual sort of IDE stuff that you'd expect, and everybody in the session gets those kinds of things. It's not just about the host and so on. We've also got things like you can run and debug. Permissions is very important as well. So allowing people to join your session, but not necessarily have full permission to do everything with your code. Port forwarding, so people can test it as well remotely. And then the key thing really is these, what we've got at the top there, follow mode. We've got different kinds of follow modes and full sync mode. And those are really powerful ways of making sure you can get the most out of this and work together as a team. But the big feature is that there's no install necessary. If you want somebody to join your session, they don't have to have anything installed on their machine. They could come along with a brand new laptop, freshly installed, and just join a session and be productive straight away. All of the source code lives on the host's machine. All of the tools live on the host machine. Everything happens on the host machine. The client, the guest, just joins the session and does everything through the host machine. It's really quite useful. To sort of sum that up really as a little bit of a diagram there, the host would be, so if we're running a session, if I wanted to invite somebody from my team in to help me out with something, I'd be the host. I'd invite somebody in. I'd be running IntelliJ IDEA. I've got that on my machine. I've got all the source control, the source code, the tools, the dependencies, everything, all on my machine, and I can just invite a guest. All they need is the JetBrains client. We start a session. I send them a link. The link downloads the client. It's very lightweight. It starts up, connects to the session, and all of a sudden you're working. And if we want to have more guests, then that's just the same thing replicated. Everything runs on my machine, and the clients just connect, and they get all the information from that. So the client, as we'll see in a minute, is a very lightweight version of IntelliJ IDEA. It's stripped down. It's got no language features in it at all, but it's got the editor and it's got all the other features that you kind of know and love, but then they're all powered by the host machine. So if you are doing a big session with 100 people, you want to make sure that you can, you're going to have 100 people sort of working on your machine. So you want to have a decent machine for 100 people, but it should work absolutely fine with smaller groups as well. So today we're going to be talking about IntelliJ IDEA and Kotlin, but this is a feature in the IntelliJ platform. So that means it's available for pretty much all of the IDEs that we build: Appcode, CLine, Golang, PyCharm, PHPStorm, RubyMine, and WebStorm, and also Android Studio as well. It's available as a version for that. It currently supports, Electric Eel. I can never remember the names of that. Electric Eel, which is the equivalent of IntelliJ IDEA 2022.1, I believe.
Correct. Canary 9.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. So it's available in there as well, so you can try it and give that a go. Quick word on licensing. I'll cover this again at the end in a bit more detail. The first thing to say is that a guest doesn't need to have a license. So again, you can come along with your brand new laptop, just connect and everything's fine. The host must be licensed, but the good news is if you've already got a license for IDEA or one of the other IDEs, for IDEA Ultimate, let's say, then that includes the Code with Me license as well. So if you've got IDEA Ultimate, you've got Golang, you've got WebStorm, PHP Storm, whatever, then you've already got the Code With Me license as part of that. If you're using one of the community versions, IDEA Community or PyCharm Community, and also Android Studio, then you've also got access to Code With Me, but it's limited by time and the amount of people who can join the session. And I'll cover that again towards the end. And finally, as well, if you're using educational licenses, which we've got lots of different licenses for classrooms, for students, for teachers, then that's exactly the same as if you had the full license to do with IDEA Ultimate there as well. So you get the full functionality.
Right, and if you currently do not have a license, but you are a student or a teacher or somehow else involved in education, you can go to jetbrains.com/education. And you can see, because there's a good chance you might just be eligible to grab a free license from over there.
Absolutely. We are very generous with licensing for students and teachers and tutors and classrooms and stuff. So definitely check that out and see what you can get your hands on. So that's kind of enough talking. I think enough slides. Should we do some demos? Should we see it in action?
I think so. I think it's time to run through a bit of a scenario.
Yes. So
great.
I think the idea then is that, Seb, you're going to host something?
That is correct. So here's the scenario, right? Because as you might know, I am a Kotlin developer. So you might find me on a regular day writing some Kotlin code. The big problem is that I'm not a Spring developer, and the demo project that I've gotten here is the Spring Pet Clinic sample application. It's the Kotlin version of that. Not sure if you've ever seen this one before. If you haven't, it's just one of the official samples. If I start this up and I run this and I pop open a Chrome and I just go to localhost 8080, once this is started, I always do that too quickly. See, there we go. Then this is our little demo application. It's really just your run-of-the-mill CRUD app, right? So it's themed around a pet clinic. So there's veterinarians who treat animals with specialties, and there's also pet owners who have a bunch of fields, and you can find them, and you can also add new ones. Now, in this scenario, the big bad boss has come to me and given me a ticket that says, you, as one of the people who works in our Germany department, for those of you who don't know, I actually work from Munich, Germany, we need you to support German phone numbers. So if I go in here and I enter like an address, I love the fact that our office has such a long address, and I enter a phone number that's German in style, then we get the issue that this numeric value out here is out of bounds. So something is wrong. There's clearly a bug. And the problem is that I might not be in a situation where I really understand what's going on, but luckily I have Matt, who can hopefully help me out with this kind of stuff. And I think Code With Me hopefully helps through the process.
Yeah, I have to say up front, I'm not a Spring developer either, but we'll figure it out between us. I think that's going to be the key thing. So yeah, so let's do this. Let's do some collaborative development and start up a Code With Me session and give this a whirl. Now, it's really easy to get started with a Code With Me session. There's a nice button on the toolbar in the middle there. That's it. Looking like a couple of people. If you click that, you get a drop down with a couple of options. You can set up permissions. You can join a session if you've already got a link there. But we're interested in starting a session. So if we click that, we now get a dialog whereby we can just hit the blue button and start a new session. But before we do that, I want to just kind of cover a couple of the options you've got here. So from here, we can set up the permissions that are available. So right now it's defaulted to read only. That means that if I join this session now, I wouldn't be able to edit any files. I wouldn't be able to do anything useful like running and debugging and so on. And that's kind of good for a like a code review scenario, or perhaps a mentoring scenario where a code walk. I'm going to show you through a particular new API of how to implement a design pattern or something where I want to show you stuff, but I don't want you to change anything. We've also got edit files, which is a simple option there that will allow us to edit files, but everything else is turned off there. So that's useful for sort of simple pair programming. you'll see there in the custom permissions down at the bottom there, there's a link there for managing hidden files. So if you could just go up a little bit there, manage hidden files there. This is really useful if your project has like config files which have got passwords in or other sort of sensitive information. You can actually add them in here, and you can stop then other people looking at these files when they don't need to. And so you can kind of keep some things a little bit more hidden and safe. So the other option we've got then is full access, and that will allow us to, as it says, have full access, and then a custom, of course, we can change these however we want. So the full access gives us access to the run debug tool window, a few other tool windows, and also the terminal tool window. Now, this one's a very sort of interesting one. You need to be careful about this one, because once this is enabled, it means that I, as a guest, can run anything through the terminal with the same permissions that Seb has. And so I think, Seb, do you trust me?
I certainly do not. I'm going to change this to view only. You can watch me in the terminal, but I don't want you to type there.
Okay, well, you know, that hurts, but let's go with it. If you click start session now, we will... Oh, one last thing, actually, before we do. Down the bottom there, there's the start call option. We've got a checkbox there. We can start up a video and voice and text chat call. So you can actually sort of collaborate fully within the IDE. You don't have to have another sort of chat window open on another screen or anything. So let's start that session and get started. Code with me now will spin up a new session. We'll see we've got a little notification there to say that the link is started and it's on the clipboard. And Seb, if you behind the scenes send me a link.
I shall do that.
It's okay, I've got a hold of that. And let me just paste that into my browser. I can then just very quickly click a link. Whoops. And where are we? There we go. In all the wrong, clicking all the wrong buttons. And now it's going to download the client for me and launch everything. I've got the client already downloaded. It's cached. So it's just starting up right now. And any second now, we will see a notification on Seb's screen about a security code. So I have the same code on my machine. It says 2038. What does yours say, Seb?
2038.
Brilliant. That is showing us that everything is end-to-end encrypted. So all of the traffic that is happening between the two, do you want to click approve, by the way, so that doesn't time out?
I will.
All of the connection between my machine and Seb's machine is end-to-end encrypted, and it is hasn't been changed. That pin number there is kind of showing us that there is we've kind of done a cryptographic signature on that, and it hasn't been modified. If anybody was intercepting the call, the number would be different. So it's a little bit of sort of validation for you to know that everything's fine. All right, and so I've joined the session. Have you kind of got a little note up at the top there to say that I've joined the session?
Yep, there's a little M here that indicates that you're Matt. You're in here.
Me, fantastic. Right, so let's just swap over to my screen.
Wonderful. Brightness warning for all of those people who are allergic to light themes. We're going to switch to Matt's screen.
Yep, sunglasses on.
Yep, that's right. Here we go.
There we go. That looks good. So I'm going to use a light theme, and Seb's going to use a dark theme, so you'll always know who we are. You know which screen is being shown at the moment. But you'll see now this is the client. This is me connected to Seb's project. It looks very familiar. It looks very much like a version of IntelliJ IDEA. I've got my project view on the side here, and I can very quickly sort of navigate around and open files. And it, as you see, it is very much like a version of IntelliJ, and that's exactly what it is. It's a very stripped down, lightweight version of IntelliJ without any language processing in it at all. Basically, it's the editor and the framework and user interface to do all that. This version of the client is now connected to Seb's machine, and it is getting all the information, all the details from Seb's machine. So Seb's machine is doing all the work here. So the project view that I'm seeing there is the view of Seb's project. I haven't downloaded any of these files here. It's not copying the whole project across. It's actually just showing me what is available on Seb's machine. And we can see now I've got the editor as you'd expect here. I've got a markdown file here. So, and it's all syntax highlighted. You know, we're kind of talking about a Kotlin project, but it's not just Kotlin. We support, the client supports all file types that the host supports. So if the host has got syntax highlighting for CSS, HTML, Kotlin, Java, Python, whatever, that will all flow through into the client as well, and I get to see syntax highlighting there as well.
I also see a little V in the corner there of your IDE. Now I'm not a Vim user, but I know that is Idea Vim.
Yes, I am a Vim user, and I will talk to anybody about Vim and try and convert them as much as possible. I also know how to quit out of Vim, so that's we're safe, we're good. I've learned these things. But yes, that's a really important point, because this is a local application. It's the client, and we can actually have plugins and customize the IDE as well. So I can bring in Idea Vim to change how I use the editor. I can bring in themes, so I could use a Solarized theme or the dark purple theme, and I can quickly change those as well. So if I wanted to, I could use a dark theme, or I could use high contrast, nice, or even sort of one of the Solarized themes, but we'll stick with light for now. So the client is it's a local machine, a local application, but everything is happening remotely. All the files and all the processing and everything is happening remotely. So right, now we've got this application, what can we do with it? And the answer is the usual sort of stuff that we can do with IntelliJ IDEA. So if I just open up Search Everywhere, which is just a little bit big at the minute, I can do the usual sorts of searches. There we go. So if I go to something like owner controller, it'll do the usual search for me, and I can navigate around. I can control click on something. So what's data binder there? I can control click. Interesting. I can do find usages, and it should show me where it is. There it is, find usages. So I can navigate around, and I can jump to the usage that's going on there. I can go and find owner repository, and it'll navigate to where that is. From here, I can do implementations. Oh no, that one doesn't have an implementation, does it? But I've got all these features that I expect: code folding. I've got gutter icons. I can navigate around. I've got code completion. So if I start typing, I get the usual sort of code completion and the dots, and I can just type as I would normally do to add files and so on. Add files, add items from the completion list, and generally I get the same sort of functionality I would expect from the IDE working locally.
Yeah, from sitting right next to me, even though you're like 1,000 kilometers away from me.
Yes, that's a good point. I'm in the UK and you're in Munich, so this is this is really useful. I can actually do sort of pair programming with people in my team who are geographically in a very different place, which is pretty important. So what else can we show you? So how about you come and join me in? Oh yeah, I'm looking at we've got the sort of tooltips as well. So if I hover over the tooltips, I get the quick doc and useful things as well. How about if you come and join me in owner controller, Seb, and I can be sort of down here. I can do something like hello from Matt, and now I can see there's a cursor around here.
Yeah.
And so I can be deleting this, and I can do something else over here, and we can sort of navigate around, and we can compile. We can edit the file at the same time, and we can both get things like completion and other things like that, which is pretty useful. I also get inspections as well. You can see I've got this one here telling me that the property should start with a lowercase letter, and then I can do Alt-Enter, and I can, I don't have a fix for this particular one, but I've got Alt-Enter for other features here as well. So I could add a getter to it, and I get the quick fixes as you'd expect, and I can just undo that. I can see all of my usual warnings and so on. So I've got a lot of navigation going on here. I've got the structure window. Let me just hide that project view. And so I can navigate around from that, and I can move there. I can then do the whole find in, go to file member and type all of this and navigate around. It's very much like working with the IDE locally, which is great. But I'm just using Seb's machine, which is nice. So I can save my battery and just use Seb's machine. I like the sound of this.
Yeah.
What else can I show you? I think, let me go see. I'm in let's see, do we got usages of owner controller? Yeah, we can see where it's being used. We get the preview. We can see that it's being used in a comment there. Using comment, I can navigate to there, and it'll show me stuff. So you've got all the sort of things you want to show and want to be able to use. Let me just hide that.
Yeah,
Now,
I think this is kind of the impressive part as well is the fact that it's not just it's not just a text window that's being shared. It's kind of the whole IDE with all the buttons. It's not just you
yes.
type and then you tell me to run something or whatever. It's you have agency. You can do what you need to do. While
Absolutely,
you're in the session.
exactly, and with the same sort of features that you'd expect from the IDE. So you get all the smart stuff. You get all the comments there. There we go. These modifiers are in the wrong order, so let me just fix that for you. There we go, all sorted. It's great. It's like working with it locally, which is brilliant. But we are doing a remote thing. So we've got this Code with Me window, which is down the bottom right there. And this is where we can do our voice, video, and text chat as well. So let me just open that out a little bit. Now this, I won't do the audio, but let me see. If I switch my camera on, Seb, can you switch your camera on there? Is that going to work? This is always a bit dodgy when you're doing a webinar to see whether
I'm just gonna briefly switch you over here to my side because we've tried this beforehand and it squishes me and I look very funny, very slim, but very funny. But yeah, I can see Matt right here in my IDE off to the right.
Well, one other thing I can do here as well is I've got a button which I can do to enable screen sharing. So this is starting to confuse me now. We've got me doing remote code to share my screen. Anyway, we can do screen sharing. So this is really really quite useful here. I can do video chat, voice chat. I can share my screen. So if I need to show you something which is not part of the IDE, I can do that. I can drag that in. And we've got text chat as well. Let me just do hello from text. We do that, and you should get a re-notification somewhere.
That here.
Read dot there.
Hello, right back. Action.
Yeah,
delightful.
Brilliant.
Got a little notification bell as well. Classic.
Super.
So yeah, if you need one more channel of communication, Code with Me brings it to you.
Exactly, but this is nice because it keeps you in the IDE rather than having to have the IDE somewhere and a text chat, kind of Slack or Space or whatever, on another window. You can do everything sort of just within your in the IDE, which is really nice.
Before we move on here for a second, I will switch over to you, but I'll also throw in a question from one of our viewers here, which fits quite well. And that is, when will this be available for Android Studio? Because I believe you actually mentioned this in the beginning, but it's probably worth repeating.
Absolutely. So Android Studio is supported with Electric Eel Canary 9, and that is, I believe, the latest version right now. And that matches up with IntelliJ IDEA 2022.1. So Android Studio always sort of is a little bit behind the release chain that JetBrains has, but it's not that far behind, and it is available as a plugin for Android Studio. I think it might be bundled plugin actually. And yes, you can do that because it is. I'll cover this in the licensing at the end, but because it is sort of one of the community type tools, then the licensing is somewhat limited. However, that just means you get only a maximum of 3 guests and a 30-minute session. But once the session ends, you can just start it back up again. But I'll cover the licensing again at the end.
Right. Wonderful. Just figured, if you're not seeing the button in your Android Studio, first of all, make sure you have the correct version. As I said, Electric Eel Canary 9, I think it is, and and make sure that the plugin is enabled or installed. You'll just do that over your settings menu.
Yeah, I think the plugin is bundled, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
All right.
Okay, so so that's a very sort of quick tour of what's going on with the client here. I'm connected, what Code with Me is giving you here. I'm connected to Seb's machine. I can do a whole bunch of stuff, and it's all great. Let me just stop tell you what, I'm going to end the video session because we've got enough going on there. So what we can do, I've got the same button here for Code with Me that Seb had. Of course, I'm joined a session rather than starting there. I can leave it, which I don't want to do, but I'm also going to leave the video call. So let's just get rid of that because we no longer need it, and a webinar is enough, I think. But what I'd like to do right now is try and
Help
reproduce the... Yeah, exactly. We've got a problem that we need to solve. So I'm going to try and reproduce it locally. So I can see here, I've got my run configuration as normal. I can select the Pet Clinic application, and I've got a run button. So I'm just going to run the application and see what happens.
I got my hands up. I'm not running the application myself.
Yeah, but I am. This is good. We're just seeing that it was just did a quick build. It's also running the application. Now we do need to switch back to your machine just briefly, Seb.
Understood.
Because you should have a notification once this is up and running.
Let's see here.
Has that worked? Yep, you should have a notification now in the bottom right that the application we just started running is using ports. So it's a Spring application. It opens a couple of ports for metadata and stuff, but it also opens port 8080 for the actual application itself. Now, it'd be really, really useful if I could use that. So there's a button there which is port forwarding, to forward the port, and Seb can then forward that port to me. So we've got the application running. I started it. It did a build. It's running on Seb's machine. And if I just jump back to my Code with Me window, there's another tab up here for port forwarding, and I can see now that the port 8080 has been forwarded, and fortunately, it's been forwarded to 8080. So if I just bring a browser in and refresh this, then I should. There we go. I've got the Pet Clinic.
I think if I go to this alone is an absolutely magical piece of the software, because I remember how much of a pain it was a few years ago to give people access to an application that you had running locally where you want to reproduce something, and yeah, now it's just built in with the IDE.
Absolutely, it's fantastic. It's I don't have to do anything, and it makes it very easy for you to be able to forward the ports as well. You don't have to worry about any sort of command line stuff. It's just we recognize when a port is being used and automatically forward it. Well, we automatically offer to forward it, which is nice. So yeah, looks like I can reproduce this. So yeah, we've got a problem. So let's fix the problem, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like I didn't lie to you when I told you it was a
well,
problem.
Look, if you don't trust me to have access to your terminal, I don't see why I should trust you. It's
I
reasonable.
See. Okay.
Yeah, that's how it is. Right, I'm going to close all my windows there. Now, I know you have already done some investigation into what might be going on.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So what we can do here is sort of simulate what we would do for a code review kind of thing. So if we're doing a code review, we want somebody to be able to walk through a scenario, to be able to show what's going on, to show what they've learned and what have you. So the host is doing some kind of code review, showing something. We can do that, and we can do that very easily with follow modes, and these are really cool. So this, if I had all those windows open, it'd be very hard for me to know where Seb was without sort of being able to sort of follow him around and everything. And we do have these little sort of icons here, and now if I click that, I can actually go and see where he is. But without that, then that makes it very tricky. If he goes to a different file, I don't know where he is and so on. So what we can also do is under this item here, I'm already following there, so let me just try that again. Under this item here, if I go, it shows me the list of everybody who is in the session. I get to see myself, of course, and I get to see Seb, and there's a couple of options. I can jump to the cursor, so I can just go straight to the file where he is. So if I've momentarily lost him, I can click jump to cursor, and it'll show me where he is. And again, we've got this little S in the tab window there to show that Seb's there. Or I can go back here and I can do follow or pair coding mode. And I'll show those in a sec, but we'll do with follow right now. And instead of clicking that, I will do the shortcut, which is just to click that button there. And now I'm following Seb. You can see down the bottom right, it says you're following Seb, and it gives me an option to stop doing that. But what this means now is that I get to follow everywhere Seb is. So I got no hands on the keyboard again now. And Seb's going to show me where he thinks the problem is and what he's looked at so far to see what the problem is.
Right. So I know that it's all about creating new owners. At first, I kind of looked at this one, but I realized it's a GET request, and most likely when we submit our form, it's going to be a POST request. So I looked at the POST mapping here. The POST mapping for owners new seems like it would be the reasonable thing. Uh, I figured that since there's some kind of validation logic somewhere here, well, there's an annotation there, it's got to have something to do with the owner. So I navigate to the owner, take a look here.
Can I
Actually, I'm
just say
kind
that
of
I can see the owner? So I'm not doing any navigation here. This is my screen, but I'm now following Seb because
That's
Seb's
right.
showing me we're going to owner, and my screen is showing me that, so I can follow along brilliantly.
Wonderful. So my initial thought was, well, a person might have maybe a phone number, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So I can just close this tab again for me, and we can go down here. And at the end, I found this telephone property here, which has this digits annotation, which just says, well, it's 10 integer digits, and I guess no fractions, which I assume that this right here is the culprit. So I think this is where we need to do something else.
Yep, and I absolutely agree. And if I put my mentoring hat on, and we sort of change scenario a little bit, and it's like I come in and I'm like, yes, you're absolutely right. The way this works is that we need to do some different validation here. The digits validation is obviously wrong. We need to create some custom validation. Now I'm going to be mentor, so let's change modes. So we're using the follow mode just now, where I was following Seb wherever he went. I want to flip that around now, and I want to be in charge, and I want to make everyone follow me. So I can just use this, make everyone follow you, and now I have stopped following Seb, and I'm in control now. And so I can very quickly, delete that item there, and I say, well, what we need to do is we need to create a new phone number constraint. And Seb would see this, and it is obviously going to have updated the text on his screen. But as of the mentor, I was now sort of in control and navigating around. And given this, because I'm a mentor and not actually doing the work for him, I'm going to let Seb actually implement this. So off Seb can go and implement it, but then let's change mode again. So we can do sort of a code review style thing. We can do a mentoring style kind of thing. Let's do a pair programming kind of idea here as well. And for this, we can do a useful mode, which is quite a good one here, which is the pair coding mode. And what this basically means is that every time I click around, Seb's going to follow me. But if Seb moves around, I'll follow him. So this is great for doing the whole pair program. So if Seb clicks into owner now, I should click over to owner. And so,
click into owner here.
Yeah. So this is great for when you want to work together, and what you would traditionally do at a desk, and it's kind of like, well, okay, now I want to drive. No, it's my turn with the keyboard. No, give me the keyboard back. You can kind of do that through this with this pair coding mode, so we can both be in the same place at the same time. But right now, we're going to do a different thing. We're going to say, okay, we've figured out what we're going to do. Seb, you're going to go and implement the constraints. How about while you're doing that, I do something useful and implement the tests?
That sounds excellent. So
okay,
back to
so
my
let me
screen
just
we
go to the validated tests page. Okay,
Wonderful.
so is that where you are? You in tests now?
Yes, I'm right here with you. So let me just split you over to the right so that people can see what we're doing. And I know that I am going to need some kind of constraint. So I'll create myself a file called, I'll just copy this for the sake of it, a Kotlin file.
Let me just,
looks like this.
Sorry.
Sure, we'll add it. That goes over here. And yeah, so while you are kind of writing your test up, I will I've got something prepared here because I'm unfortunately not a developer of the Spring framework.
Yeah, unfortunately, I know how to write tests better than I know how to write Spring.
But fortunately, yes, we can copy things, and there's still some stuff left for me to implement. So I'll just do that while you're typing over there. I don't really know how to implement this. Maybe I'll just return false for the time being. That seems easy enough. I'm sure no one will notice. Just make sure that this... maybe we can move this one out. In the meantime,
How are we getting on?
type it over here.
Let me just paste the rest of that in.
Right. Look at that. Wonderful.
Okay, how are you getting on? I've finished my
Yeah,
tests.
sure, great. So I think I've got the framework done there, but not really. I think I need to. This logic needs a little bit of work, so maybe you just
Okay.
want to hop over and.
Well, let's do the full test. I can't say this test-driven development thing. Red Green Refactor. I've written a test, so let me just run those tests. So your run window there should be working. It's going to build,
Yep.
and it should actually run a test for us.
I didn't start this test. I just opened.
No,
the
I
window
clicked
so
this.
I could see it.
I'm starting
That's
this. I'm
right.
running the test. I've
Very
been given
good.
permission to run the test.
You're in control.
In control, always in control.
I'm just learning.
And that's just hopefully should finish building. And has that picked up that test? Oh, do you know what I did? I need somebody to pair program with here because I messed up the test attribute. Okay, so let me just rerun the tests.
No, I think it's fine. Everything was green. It's I don't need to change anything.
That's not how we roll. There we go. Now we got a failing test.
Test has failed. Okay, I guess I need to use a little bit more brain power than this. But I think it shouldn't be too hard. I think the whole point of validating a phone number is just, well, if the value of our phone number is null, then we can reasonably say that it's not a valid phone number. And otherwise, we'll just say, well, if our pattern matches the value, then I think we can just return that. And I think that should work. So why don't you run them again? Hands off the keyboard.
Good. Okay, I'm going to click run. And it's just building and running, and we've got green tests.
Look at that. That's why you hired me.
Fantastic. That's proper pair programming. However, I still don't trust you. I'm still hurting from the terminal comment. So let's do a quick review, shall we? So I can do the whole follow mode again. I'm following you now, and I'm suddenly back in the code. And I can have a look at all of this, and I can see what's going on. I say, yeah, I think that looks nice. However, I don't think pattern is a terribly good name. So why don't we rename that and change that one to be something like phone number pattern?
Yeah, look at that. And since you invoked a proper refactoring, that got changed in both places here. So that's nice.
Absolutely. So yes, that's nice. I can refactor from here as well. So that's looking really good. Now, I think what I would like to do is try running it again, but this time debugging just to make sure.
Okay.
So let's do that. So I'm going to take control again over here. If I just make sure that applications turned off, let's fire it up for debug. And if I go back to my owner controller, sorry, that's my screen. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And if we go back to this process creation form here, and I put a breakpoint in there. Let me find my application again. Right, we should be good there. Now then, let's see. I should be able to click Add Owner, and right now we've got a breakpoint. And so I'm now debugging the application on your machine through port forwarding, and I get to see the normal stuff. And I can, I've got a call stack as you'd expect. I can look at the owner item. I can see, that it's me. I've got a telephone number there. Which is good. And I can also look at the results item. And if I go to errors, I can see size is 0. So that's good. I can do normal sort of debug stuff and, check that actually, yes, maybe you have implemented this correctly. So I like it. Well done. You're now a Spring developer. How do you feel about that?
Amazing. I should ask for a salary increase or something. I feel like this is one of the features where when I first saw this, it truly felt like magic. Because again, when someone says collaborative editing, I think a lot of people's minds go to like, okay, it's it's Google Docs with a run button.
Yep.
There's so much like if we wouldn't have told people that you are not on my machine, I think people would have taken some time to catch on that you're not developing on your own machine there.
It actually feels like I'm developing locally. I can debug with exactly the same sort of features as I'm used to locally. It all feels really nice and it's good. And it's important to point out as well, I'm debugging a session there. We're sharing that debug session, so you could have actually stepped through and carried on there as well. So it's great. It's really useful. It's a nice thing. So that kind of, I think, concludes our scenario. We've managed to do some collaborative development and work together and fix the problem. We can do sort of code review kind of scenario there, where I'm following you and you're showing me what's going on. We can do the sort of mentoring thing where I join a session and help you and point stuff out, and we work a little bit more collaboratively. And we can do pair programming as well. We're swapping between the two of us or working at the same time, and so on. So we've got a lot of scenarios that we can cover there, which is pretty cool.
That's just for the two of us, right? I mean, if there's more people, again, if we were standing in front of a group of new hires that you wanted to introduce, or again, if you're in front of a classroom, this just seems like a really elegant way for people to familiarize themselves with a new code base, learn something new, go on code walks, as we said before.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that expression, code walk. I think it sums things up nicely. Just being able to take somebody through a code base and show them by navigating to where you need to be. It's really good. I think just to sort of round up a little bit, then there's a couple more things I want to show which are quite useful. So if we go to the commit window here, again, this is me as a guest looking at your machine. I can see the commits that you have made. In fact, let me rephrase that. I can see all the changes that have been made in this session, all the changes made since the last commit. And what's really nice is that we've got them grouped by participant. So the main changes from your machine there, and we also get the changes that I've made. We can see that right here. And so the changes you made, phone number constraint there. So you've got a brand new file, and I can double click and I get the usual sort of diff view of just a brand new file. But if we look at some of the changes I made, so I made some changes in owner controller, I get to see a proper diff view there of what's been edited. And the same then with my test. If I jump down into my test, I get to see the new test that I added with an extra import there as well. So a whole bunch of useful features. If I just go back to a source file and go to the problems view, I get the proper problems view of what's going on there. I can see the typos in some names that the spell checker isn't aware of. I've got the build window, as we saw it working there. I've got my debug window and my run window, and I've got a terminal window. Oh, actually, before we get to the terminal, we're going to come back to that. The Gradle window. Gradle is useful as well. I get the full view of Gradle. I can see tasks. I can, given the right permissions, I can start these tasks, and that would add a new run configuration and allow us to run and debug. But I want to come back to this terminal. So I don't have permissions to access this terminal.
That's right.
So I only have view only. So if you start up a terminal window on your screen there, if we stay on me, I think I should be able to view a terminal.
Let me see here. I can make a shared terminal window here.
Great, I can see that. That's not a command. Yeah, but now if I try and type, nothing's happening. So that's no good. Now, let's just quickly switch back to your screen and give me the power.
That sounds
great.
So if
we pull your screen back up, and if you go back to the Code with Me drop-down menu, you can use the permissions item there to change the permissions for everybody in the call, or you can go just to Matt and change the permissions there, and you can give me full control.
Right. It's just you.
And if
I trust you here. This is the trust fall exercise.
This isn't
Code with Me,
isn't it? Because I can do ls there, and you should be able to see that. You can see me doing that.
Yep.
And now, what is it? RM minus FR.
Just slamming some control C's in there.
But yeah, I mean, it's very important to say that there is security concerns here. Only do it with people you trust, who are not going to try and trash your machine live on the internet. And you've got the permissions and ability to switch that off as you need it. Last two things I think I need to say really is with Code with Me. The client isn't the full experience. There are things that are not available in the client that are available in the full IDE, but generally speaking, they are the things that are not appropriate for a guest to have. So, for example, I don't see the full VCS history log, sorry, version control history log, because I don't need it. We're there to solve problem. We're there to work on code. I don't see the project setup dialog there, so I can't change JDK settings or module settings. But again, that's appropriate because it's not my project. I'm there to help as a guest. So the host owns the project and the host is responsible for it, but the guest has a slightly different experience, but all the main sort of development scenario features are there and available.
Can you commit on my behalf?
That's a very good question. Actually, yeah, because we talked about the commit window there. I can see all the diffs there, but I can't commit. Again, the code is still your code. You get to see, I mean, splitting it into change lists like that is great when you're ready to commit, because you then review everything and you see who made those changes. And that's really important, because then, it's like, if you're thinking there, I don't remember making that change. It's like, oh, Matt did it. He's trying to trash my machine on the internet again. And you can roll those back.
Yeah, all of your changes immediately. It's excellent.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, that's actually very, very important. You might want to just say, that's great, but I don't want to take anybody else's code other than mine. I can roll back just Matt's changes without having to look through every single change there is. I know which ones are Matt's and which ones are mine, which is cool. Nice. Okay. I think we're just about done with all that, unless you have any other questions to dive into right now.
I don't think so. I think this was pretty well covered. We have a couple of questions, but we're gonna keep those for the Q&A afterwards.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's jump back to the slides then, I think.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, and so, oops, I've just lost my view of the slide, so I can't see what I'm talking about. There it is. Okay, so yeah, so just a quick recap, really, of what we've covered. All the features that are here. There, we've got the port forwarding, which is really cool. There, I can run and debug as a guest, which is very awesome. There's permissions management to stop me doing evil things to Seb's machine. Simultaneous editing, which is really useful. We can do the whole, I write tests while Seb writes the production code. And of course, the follow modes, the really, really important part of the follow modes, which allow you to control how the scenario works and where you are, not get lost amongst the all the different windows that are there, and follow the appropriate people there. And of course, the voice, video, and text chat and screen sharing as well, which is great. So I promised to talk a little bit more about licensing. We've got a few different licenses. The premium license for Code with Me is bundled with your normal license there. If you've got a license for IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate or one of the other IDEs, then that includes Code with Me. That gives you up to 50 guests in a session. It also gives you an unlimited session length and also unlimited number of sessions, so you can keep going without having to restart the IDE or anything like that. You can start a new session, and of course you get support. The community edition, so IDEA community and PyCharm community, they still get Code with Me, but the session is limited to 30 minutes, after which time you have to rejoin, reconnect, restart a new session. And you're also limited to 3 guests there as well, but you can just restart your sessions and carry on. And finally, the premium one also includes the educational licenses as well. So if you've got the educational license for the classroom, for the teacher, for the student, then that includes the same features as the premium, up to 50 guests, unlimited session length, unlimited reconnects, and so on. We've also got an enterprise session license, which is really useful if you want to have even more guests there. You can have up to 100. Again, you'll need a bit of a beefy machine to cope with that, but it can work nicely. Unlimited session length, as we say. But the key thing with this one is that you get to host the servers internally as well, if you wish. So when we start a session, that is coordinated through a JetBrains server. We don't get to see any of the data that gets sent across. As I said before, everything is end-to-end encrypted. If we can, we connect peer-to-peer, and we don't see anything. If we can't connect peer-to-peer, we do have relay servers, and the data goes through the relay servers, but it is encrypted and we cannot see any of it. If you have an internal network and you don't have access to any of those JetBrains servers, then you can host these things internally with the enterprise license. I think that's everything for licensing. Finally, then, we've got some useful links. I'm going to leave this slide up for a couple of minutes, I think. If you want it, freeze frame and grab a snapshot, and they're useful there. Links to Kotlin educational stuff, Kotlin's blog, the educational licenses for IDEA itself. That's really useful if you're, again, classroom, teacher, or student. You get different kinds of licenses going on there, but you get access to everything. And then the Code With Me link itself there as well. And I think that's pretty much everything. So do we have any questions?
There's the YouTube Kotlin.
Oh yeah, go to YouTube. Click and like and subscribe. We've got YouTube. Yeah. We've got a couple of thing there. YouTube.com/Kotlin. That's the Kotlin specific YouTube stuff. And the Kotlin/Code With Me link there as well. That is I believe it's a YouTube playlist of useful information there as well. Okay.
Wonderful. Great. Then we shall move on to your questions and hopefully our answers. My favorite question that someone posted in here is, "It's great." That's my favorite one. Thank you, background people, for forwarding that one. It's always good to hear, start everything off with good vibes. We had one person here saying they used Code With Me for a university project, and unlike VS Code's live share, it did not butcher our files due to issues with syncing them. So hey, that's great to hear. That's first stamp of approval right
Absolutely.
there.
And again, I think it's worth pointing out that we don't copy files around. We're not trying to sort of keep files in sync there. We sort of do sync changes. So it is similar in a way to Google Docs and the way you can do sort of collaborative editing there, but of course with all the IDE features around it, which is great.
And since you squeezed in this follow-up question, how's Kotlin for WebAssembly doing, by the way? It's going great. We are making progress. The backend is progressing. I literally just talked to the team lead the other day. There is new stuff happening all the time, and it is improving. But it's a little bit out of scope for this session. Okay.
It's fine. It covers the Kotlin bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. The other question that we have here from Werner is the staging mode supported in the commit window by Code With Me?
Good question. I'm not 100% sure of the answer, to be perfectly honest. I think the answer is no, and it works with change this. Actually, no, I genuinely don't know. I don't know. So the question there, the staging mode there, if you're using Git, you can either use IntelliJ's change lists, which are a completely IntelliJ specific sort of idea, or you can disable those and use Git's staging mode instead, where you can stage things into the index. I don't know how those two features play together. I would suspect that if you're using the staging area, you disable change lists, and all of this nice sort of splitting by person is based on change lists. So I would suspect that if you're using staging, you do not get the splitting by user in Code With Me. But I'd have to check.
All right. Other question is, apparently Code With Me is not bundled with Android Studio Canary 9. And maybe it's also not in the marketplace. Where can people download it if they can't find it elsewhere?
I haven't checked that one. I was under the impression it was either bundled with Electric Eel or it was in the marketplace. I don't quite know where it would be right now. Let me just double check. Let's see if I can quickly check.
Wonderful. In the meantime, I think I can answer another question here, and that is, can you switch projects within one session? Is that possible? The answer to that is no, not really. But there's, as you see, the overhead for starting a new session is very, very low. It's the matter of pressing two buttons and possibly setting 3 configuration options in regards to permission. Then people can just join again. So while it's not possible, I don't think you'll find that's going to be a big hurdle.
Okay, so how do I do this? Right, let me share screens. If we can share my screen for a second.
Of course.
Right, so Code With Me is available in the marketplace for Android Studio. However, it's an EAP version. So by default, we get the stable version, and the last one listed there is for version 2021. But if we click here to the EAP, and we've got a compatibility of Android Studio, it's listed here as 221, which is our 2022.1. It's compatible with that there, and you can download it and so on. You can also add, if you take this URL, you can add that as a repository in the plugins dialog itself, and you'll be able to then sort of just download it and get it there. But it's not available purely as a stable version just now, then, by the looks of it.
All right.
Does that answer the question enough? Are we happy with that?
I am happy enough with it.
That's all right.
I hope that our asker will be as well.
If it turns out to not be the case, we will sort of update that with the sort of, with various notes.
Great. Yeah. No. Rob says, yeah, that's good enough. Well done, Matt.
Great.
There's one more question here. That is, can my regular IntelliJ installation also be a client? Because maybe you need Code with Me installed, but you said there was no installation. So what's up with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way the client works is that it is a standalone application, and it is a sort of a separate thing to IntelliJ IDEA itself. It also has to be, it's tied to the specific version of the host, and so you need to have a client that matches the host, and therefore you need to join the two together. We can't run IntelliJ IDEA in client mode. It doesn't work like that, and so you actually don't need to have IntelliJ IDEA installed. If you do have IDEA installed, IDEA will just help by downloading the client. So if IDEA is up and running and you click a link to download the client there, IDEA will sort it all out for you rather than having to go through the web page. But they are separate, and you can't use an existing install. And that's also quite useful in a way, because if you're in the middle of a session working with your own projects in IDEA, you don't then want to have to close that or anything to join a session. You can just start the client up and use the client to connect to the session. However, the client will also pick up the settings from your install of IntelliJ, and so your themes and key maps should come across from the IntelliJ settings, IntelliJ IDEA settings.
I think at this point, since our demo is now over, I can also just briefly show what this invitation page looks like. So if you don't have it installed, if you don't have IntelliJ IDEA installed, if you're on a completely clean machine, you'll just get this prompt which you can execute in your shell, and that's going to take care of downloading everything as a standalone application. You don't need a JDK, you don't need a JVM, all that kind of stuff. It just takes care of getting that for you.
Absolutely. Once it's cached, it's downloaded, and the next time you start up a session, it just launches the client and you connect much quicker.
That's right. Okay. Rob also asks, how's Code with Me as a fit for practical coding interviews?
Yeah, that can work equally well, because again, you don't need to have anything installed on the client, the guest's machine. So you could send them a link, they could join, and that's great. Obviously, because it's IntelliJ IDEA, it's more helpful if the person you're interviewing already knows IntelliJ IDEA, although that's not a necessity, because you can use the follow modes to get people to be in the right place, and then they can just type and join in. But why would you be interviewing people who don't use IntelliJ IDEA?
I think it's a good filter, just to get started. But yeah, I think the big point here is the clients or the guests don't need extra licenses or something like that. They can just dive in. So you can send the link to someone even if they don't have a license. They'll be able to connect for you.
You don't need the project. You don't need source code. You don't need compilers, dependencies, license. So from that point of view, yes, it's great for a coding interview. And the follow modes mean that you can show people where they need to go and so on.
Magnificent. Wonderful. One question that I guess kind of, again, widens our scope a little bit is, are there any plans for a web IDE or for people who don't have IntelliJ on their computer, or maybe using a mobile device? We've covered the not having IntelliJ on their computer partially. I guess with remote development in general, there's also a bigger idea of kind of bringing some of the computation further away from your own machine, and then of course the big name in the room is also JetBrains Fleet, which is currently still in preview. So I believe there's still a waiting list going on right now, which also tries to reimagine this whole idea of distributed and remote development with kind of running different parts of your IDE at different places. For mobile devices, I don't think we have anything right now, but who knows what the future will bring.
Absolutely. Same with the web. Nothing to talk about right now. No plans right now. But mentioning remote development is an interesting one, because Code with Me kind of does lead into remote development. And we do have a feature called Gateway, which is it's very similar to Code with Me, sort of similar kind of thing that I've shown you there. But instead of doing Code with Me to join somebody else's session, you use the same client to connect to a remote instance of IntelliJ IDEA, and then you get the full experience. So you can configure your JDK and so on. So remote development is very cool as well. But that's nice. A different webinar.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of other questions I think here would also be better suited for another webinar, but we'll quickly address them if you people are still around. Will Kotlin Cones be getting any updates? They are fun, but they are quite short. We are always looking to improve our materials. So if you have specific topics that you feel would be good fits for Cones, just write an issue for us, and we'll try to tackle that. I think we'd be more than happy to kind of do updates in that regard. But Kotlin keeps evolving a lot. There's only so many hands typing, so we gotta pick our battles there sometimes. Let's see here. We have another question. I think that is about it. Good cheeseburgers on Twitch. Hey, welcome to, I believe, our only Twitch viewer. Not sure. Appreciate you tuning in. Asks if maybe we can do a C-Line stream at some point. I hope so. I mean, probably not me.
Now I have to dive in here, because we did a C-Line stream on the different ways that C-Line can do remote development. So it wasn't a Code with Me style thing. I mean, everything I've shown for Code with Me today applies to pretty much every language. All the same sort of features are available for all the different languages across the different IDEs. But we did a webinar a week ago, 2 weeks ago, on C-Line and remote development, showing how to work with C-Line with Docker, with WSL, with remote systems, working with a Raspberry Pi, where you want to sort of compile locally, but debug and run remotely. And we then added a bit of code. We sprinkled a bit of Code with Me on the top of that. So the demo ended up with Code with Me into Timo's machine that was connected to a Raspberry Pi, and I could debug the Raspberry Pi via Code with Me. It's great. It's that kind of thing is bonkers, that different places, and I can debug someone else's Raspberry Pi.
Well, maybe we should try that next time, because we actually used some C-Line. I was watching one of our internal developers build a new feature in C-Line and repeatedly bang his head against the desk until I think it was 2 a.m. until we got it to work, which was quite exciting. So that was a good time.
That's embedded development.
Maybe that can be live streamed at some point. That would be.
Well, banging heads on desk is always a fun thing to watch.
Yeah.
Yes, but the C-Line. I should say the C-Line video is on on the YouTube channel, YouTube JetBrains TV.
Yes, so not the Kotlin channel where you are watching right now. Remember to subscribe. And not on our Twitch. I'm not sure if we have VODs enabled for Twitch, so who knows. Okay, wonderful. We have one more question from Luis, who asks, can you run 2 run configurations at the same time? Let's say you're working on 2 different modules at this on the same host and simply want to test code simultaneously.
You should be able to. It kind of depends on the capabilities of the project and the machine at that time. So if the run configurations are mutually exclusive, then that wouldn't happen. However, if they are separate, then yes. I mean, I was running the run configuration to run tests while the application itself was still running, like you normally do on a local build. So the answer should be yes.
Nice. Akubir asks, I want to use 2 different laptops for the same project. Is Code With Me useful for me?
I'm not quite sure on the scenario there, but probably
one hand on each keyboard.
Yeah, it's Jean-Michel Jarre. Shout out for the old kids there. Then probably not, because Code With Me is more about sort of collaborating and working together. While, if you're using 2 laptops, again, unless you're left hand and right hand, then you're not necessarily going to be working together. If you want to, because one of those laptops would have to be the host, and the other one is going to be a guest which has no knowledge of the project itself. It's just showing what's happening on the host. So you would probably, it depends on what you want to use the laptops for, but it feels like the answer is no. That it's not the right fit there. This might be something, actually, this might be something for remote development. You might want to be using remote development, but that, again, is also more dealing towards having IDEA running on a server and using the client to connect to that from a desktop, from a laptop, from anybody's machine.
Nice. Good Cheeseburger says, Raspberry Pis are great, but try getting a Raspberry Pi 4. I have one. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Nobody likes to show off. That's it.
Don't ask me how I got this one. It was difficult.
Timo had problems getting one as well. They are in short supply right now.
Yeah, I very much hope that they will be easier to get. Literally, the only reason I have this one is because a friend of mine had it in a cupboard sitting there, and I was like, "Do you not need this? Can I buy this from you, please?"
See, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Exactly, that's right.
Okay.
Wonderful. I think that about wraps it up for the questions, which is excellent. So once again, we would like to say thank you so much for joining our session today. We hope you learned something new and you understand why I call Code With Me a magical feature in IntelliJ IDEA and, of course, in all the other IDEs. The big reminder, of course, as always, is to subscribe to youtube.com/Kotlin because you help us grow. We are almost at 40,000 subscribers now, which I think is incredible. It's not been that long since we've started the channel. So yeah, keep on supporting us, and we'll try to put out interesting videos for you in the future as well. So,
absolutely. And if I have one last thing to say, it's actually to just try it yourself. The button is there on the toolbar. Start a session, join a session, and give it a go. It's there, ready to be used. So use it.
That's right. Just give it a shot and see for yourself. It will be magical. All right. With that, we're signing off. See you in a future episode. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye now.